There are some really expensive things in the bike industry, but there are some also brilliant cheap things to show you. And we've got 11 today. So we'll start with 2 free things. Oh, and all of the links will be in the description. Right, first free thing. This is source for Strava, and you might not be seeing anything different, but over on the left here, we have a load of data. So this is from one of my recent rides, and it gives me all of my records for the ride. So I can see my 20-minute power record. And then if I come over to analysis, it gives me even more. So source gives me this bar here, and it tells me all sorts of stuff like my normalized power, my watts per kilo, all sorts of interesting stuff. But this isn't even the best bit, because source activates that sort of stuff on your friend's ride. So you can do some snooping. It's great. This is one of my friends, and 329 watts normalized power for 20 minutes. Someone's been training, I think. So there's loads to look at there, but there's even more, because if you come into fitness tracking or peak performance under the training tab, well, if you go and support them on Patreon for like £2 a month, I think it is, you get basically what Training Peaks is giving you for way, way more. Plus it enables source for Zwift as well, which is another free thing, and it gives you all sorts of goodness. 2 things are really improved for me. First, the chat over on the left is brilliant for group rides, especially if you're with your mates. Then for races, I really like the splits over here. One, well, it makes things clear about what gaps are kind of opening at the front of your bunch, so reacting to moves is a bit easier. Then I also like to know what's actually happening behind me. So there we go, source for Strava and Zwift. One of them is free, one of them costs you like £2 a month. So free and quite cheap. Go and give them a try. It's a browser extension and really easy to get into. The next one comes from a discussion that we had in the office the other day. What is the best cycling bottle? Now, I quite like these Elite Fly ones. They're not the most robust, as you can, well, maybe see, but they are very squishy, and the top is massive for loading with carbs and stuff. I hope that's not moldy. But Felix likes Camelback, so we reached a bit of an impasse. We couldn't decide. And then I thought, what's the best bottle that you can get? It's a free bottle, of course. Now that does involve going and watching a bike race, because these things get chucked by the riders. There can be litter zones, but most often they will throw you a bottle if you're stood at the side of the road and cheering for them. My top tip is to watch the race go past, cheer and take photos and whatever you want to do. Then, once all of the cars have gone and the race is completely gone, follow the race route and keep your eye on the hedges to the side of the road. Because honestly, anytime I go and see a pro bike race, I see a lot of these bottles. I pick them up, stuff them down my jersey, maybe empty them out of the fluids that's inside of them, get them in the wash, and then you've got a load of cycling bottles that you can either share with your friends or hoard for yourself for years to come. These things last, and I love them when they're free. My mate even has Tor Hushov's bottle from the 2011 Tour of Britain, so, you know, that's reuse and recycle. Fantastic. Next on the list is what's usually inside one of these bottles. It's MyProtein's Maltodextrin powder, and I don't think there's anything better value in cycling than this. 2.5 kilos of pure carbs for just over £8. That's so much cheaper than any cycling specific drink powder, and for my general chopping around the lanes, I'd see no point in spending more. It's also tasteless. It's recommended that you have 50 grams per bottle, and you can just mix it with any squash you like. I also put in a little bit of salt just for those electrolytes. So get your Morton and Sturka for all those races and events, but this stuff is a cheap and brilliant alternative for regular riders in my experience. So I used Continental's Grand Sport race tyres on my commuter bike for about 2 winters. I just needed something that was quick, relatively puncture resistant, and good in the wet. There's not much more to say than it rode really well. The tyre feels really grippy on wet roads, but it's not noticeably draggy. Sure, it might not be quite as fast as their top-end race tyres, but it's still really good. This isn't the cheapest tyre in the Conti range. The Ultra Sport 3 would be better if your budget is super tight, but I prefer the Pure Grip compound that you get on the Grand Sport race. So if you want a tyre that is pretty cheap and relatively quick, try the Grand Sport race. Pedals are something that I have no idea why we actually spend so much money on them. These are cheap Shimano pedals. I've had them for years. They're actually 105s, but there are even better ones. The RS 500s, I think they are. There's a mountain bike version that's pretty similar in that it is cheap and pretty bomb-proof, and it will do you for years. So yeah, these work exactly the same as Dura-Ace pedals, and they don't cost much money at all. The RS 500s, I think, are about 35 quid. Same for look as well with the Keo Classics. Stick to cheap pedals unless you're just like a weight weenie or something. All right, so onto a slightly weird one now, because I'm quite a sweaty boy on Zwift, and you might want a sweatband. So if I just pop this on like this, you can see the effect. I don't like the sweat running down to my eyes. If you can see the yellow tinge to this one, it's because it missed the wash. I'm very sorry. These ones were made for tennis. They're very cheap, cheaper than the Zwift branded ones, and they work really well. They just keep the sweat out of my eyes, and I can kind of wipe my mouth with this one. It's all a bit grotty, but honestly, these are worth having. Over here, there's no need to spend a ton of money on sunglasses these days. These ones are from Van Rysel. They're just as plastic as every other brand out there, and they work fantastically. These are 60 quid. They've also got 30 quid options in their range. And honestly, you don't even need these ones. The 30 quid ones are great. Massive coverage, so you've got protection from all the elements, and I think they look quite good. Maybe not with the sweatband though. Take this off now, I think. The next one is not exactly entertaining, but it is really, it is really useful to have a sorted saddlebag. So starting with the saddlebag itself, this one is 4 quid on Wiggle right now, and it's water resistant. It's not completely waterproof, but inside we've got a TPU tube. I know a lot of people had some choice words for Jack Luke under our last video, so I like them, and I know that I've got a lot of support out there, so that pleased me greatly. A cheap plastic tyre lever from Park Tool, and then we've got, I'm a tubeless rider, so I've got a tubeless repair tool. I've got a CO2 canister just in case, mostly because there was just a little bit of space in my saddlebag. You will need the end of that, but I generally take it out for other people because they can forget them. And then there's a Lezyne multi-tool as well. You may need a pump. So Jack Luke recommends this one. It's about a tenner, again on Wiggle right now, but as you can see, he's battered his, so he's used it loads, and he really swears by this one, so a good cheap option right there. Staying in this general vicinity, it's really worth getting yourself a sorted saddle. Now, I'm not going to recommend a particular saddle. I'm not a bike fitter, and every bottom is different, but my one recommendation to you would be to try the base model of any saddle that you're going for, and particularly my advice would be to get a used one like I did on Facebook Marketplace or eBay. This one I think cost me 20 quid, and it's still on my bike because I quite like it. And saddle discomfort might not be the saddle itself, so if you're still having an issue back here after a few saddles, maybe it's time for a bike fit. A new bar can also be a way to improve your bike's comfort or speed. There are a load of options in the market, but we would recommend anything from Deda's RHM range. So RHM stands for rapid hand movement, and it basically means being able to easily move from here to here to here. You get the picture. And finally, gravel riders, is your bike even complete without a jazzy bar bag? Now, Simon actually pointed me to this one from AliExpress. 15 quid. If you look around for the mainstream brands, you can't really get much for under 50 quid, which is a bit steep in my opinion for something that's gonna sit on the front of your bike and get absolutely trashed. These things carry all sorts of stuff, from ride essentials to snacks to maybe a bit of clothing. I really like this one. It's simple, it's effective, and it's really worth it. I even take mine on road rides in the summer. I really like them. Well, there's 11 cheap and brilliant things that you can spend your money on cycling products, but do you have any recommendations? Leave yours down in the comments below. And if you want to see cost-effective ways for you to go faster, check out our wind tunnel video.